Now, this next guest is someone who proves it's possible to have a fulfilling relationship.
Fortunately, we have a lot of resources out there to help you with your emotional connection. Intimacy is both emotional and physical. But what people are breaking up over, more often than not, is the loss of physical connection. So I put this book out because I want people to know that it's possible to have that for long term.
And that is Dr. Viviana Coles. She is a doctor of marriage and family therapy. She is a licensed marriage and family therapist, a certified sex therapist, and president at Houston Relationship Therapy. And you probably know her from hit TV show Married at First Sight, which, by the way, has been trending as top 10 on Netflix. Oh, and most importantly, she is a wife, a mom, and a pretty great friend. And I am so honored to call her a friend of mine, and it's been so beautiful to watch her kill it year after year. So, Dr. Viviana Coles, welcome to Out of the Spotlight.
Oh my gosh, Stephanie, it's happening.
I have been waiting for this moment.
The minute that you announced you had your podcast live, I was so excited. I was probably one of your first listeners because I just know how much you care about getting the right story across and getting like people's stories told.
Aww.
So when you invited me, because I didn't invite myself.
Nope.
I probably would have if you had waited any longer, but I didn't invite myself this time. I couldn't wait. So when I got your invitation, I'm like, absolutely. So thank you so much.
Thank you. No, thank you so much for those words coming from you. It means so much. And yeah, I remember I wanted you right away. I was like, I need to chat with Dr. Viviana, but I'm going to wait so I'm not too like, wah!
And we're still like, wow.
I know we still are.
We like saw each other and we're like, ooh.
We're matching. We're wearing like a pink salmon shirt.
We're like very in sync.
No, I am so excited to chat with you because we know you as someone who is always helping others and telling others, stories and always putting the pieces together. And I am so excited to learn about you and what makes you you and how you became this very positive, brave woman who isn't afraid to talk about love, relationships, and everything that, life brings to you. So, with that being said, what was it like for you growing up? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, so I am a first generation American. I was born and raised and live in Houston, Texas. My dad is from Colombia and my mom is from Mexico, but I was born in Houston. My whole family is there. I never had any plans, any expectations to leave Houston. I've always been a huge H-Town lover. We just have everything.
Oh, yeah, we do.
So I've always kind of very much identified as a Texan, but especially as a Houstonian. And growing up with Latino parents, you would think that they would have been a lot more kind of closed off when it came to sexuality. And to an extent they were. They're very reserved people. No, not really. In general, they're very like reserved when it comes to those things. But of course, if you get to hang around them a little longer, just like it is with me, they really just kind of tell it like it is. So I think for a lot of Latino, especially first generation Latino kids, talking about your family members about relationships isn't typically the norm, especially with parents, because, and I'm going to speak very generally. There's always exceptions, but with my family, you didn't really talk about relationships because you really weren't supposed to be in them, and certainly not sexual relationships before you were a full-on adult and possibly married. So, but I did get a lot of good, helpful information. My parents, while they didn't have a lot of messages surrounding sexuality, they really didn't have any that were very negative. And working with clients these days and having had clients for the past 20 years tell me that their experience was not the same. I'm grateful for the amount of information that my parents were willing to give me, whether it was something that they were comfortable with or not. And that, I think that really helped me get to a place as kind of an adolescent who had the information she needed to make really, I guess, to make very significant choices with my relationships, with my body, um, and really secure choices. And I think that that really helped me to be able to help impart that, like that information and that confidence with other people, even at a younger age. And, you asked, how did I kind of get into this and how was it as a child? I love to talk, which is perfect for this podcast.
I love that.
But as a younger person, people were always talking to me. I guess I've never really had an issue sharing my opinion. And so people would just come to me with, like, hey, this is going on with this guy. What should I text him?
You were that friend.
I was that friend. And so my junior year of high school, my college counselor asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I said, I have no clue. No clue. My dad always told me I should be a dentist. That's not happening. And I have no clue. She's like, well, what do you like to do? I'm like, I like to talk, but that's not a job. And she's like, well, wait a minute. What do you like to talk about? And I said, well, I'm constantly talking to people about what's going on in their lives and their love lives. And I said, but that's not a job. She's like, yes, it is. And that was the beginning.
And that's so funny because that was my question. My next question, I've always wondered, how were you as a teen? Were you interested in love, relationships? Were you more shy? Were you outgoing?
I definitely knew from an early age that being in a relationship was important to me. I think a lot of it came from being around a lot of family members who are and were in very healthy long-term relationships. My parents are still intact and they are crazy about each other, sometimes to a fault. They're like obsessed with one another. They're those people that are like joint at the hip.
Oh, that's cute.
It's cute. It's cute. Sometimes I'm like, go do stuff separately. And they're like, no, we don't want to. So I saw a lot of that healthy relationship at home. My parents did a good job of, if they argued in front of us, they would make up in front of us.
I like that.
They've always been very affectionate, lots of PDA. I wouldn't say anything inappropriate, but I've had clients who tell me like they've never seen their parents kiss. That's not my parents. And as I've gotten older and now that I'm a sex therapist, they're like, we're good in the bedroom. And I'm like, that's great. I didn't ask, but I'm happy for you.
Oh, I love that. It's like you're their daughter, but then they know you're also Dr. Viviana Coles, and they're letting you know we're good.
We're good. And they always give me a disclaimer. And it's not so much it's my mom. My mom is loud like I am. She's very open like I am. I got it from her. My dad just smiles and goes along with it. But yeah, we have a really good time. And a lot of it is because we are very open.
You're talking about your parents and how they are. And I love that they're in love, and that's the example they're giving you. I was having this conversation with my friend a few days ago, but we got into the topic of how much does your parents' relationship influence yours and your future? So do you think that's a pretty important thing?
I do think it's very important to know. Well, so here's the thing. How your parents are in front of you and the type of relationship that they have is going to inform you. But how and to what degree you have more say over. So, for instance, if your parents are super lovey, then you will know that that's possible and that it's okay. Whereas if you have parents that are not very loving, not very affectionate with their words or with their touch, you may struggle to know whether or not that's okay in a relationship because you didn't see it modeled. Now, of course, you can always learn from other people. You can, ask questions. You can even talk to your parents about, are they happy with the way that things are? And did they ever have any road bumps that they had to go through? Most people don't do that, though. They just kind of assume that what you see is what you get. So I would say that it definitely does change your perspective on what's possible, but it doesn't necessarily dictate who you're going to be. And now I torture my own daughter. She's like, you're so loud. You just say everything. And I'm like, you know what? The apple did not fall far from the tree, but she's going to learn. She's going to learn.
Oh, for sure. And at what age or at what moment did you realize this is my calling? This is what I want to do. This is my career. This is it for me.
I mean, I have to say, I know it sounds crazy, but it was my junior year of high school because I wasn't one of those people who was like, I'm going to be a teacher or I'm going to be a scientist or I'm going to be a veterinarian. I just kind of figured, let me just get through this grade. Let me just get through school. But when she finally asked me, her name was Miss Susan Epps, and she's no longer with us, but she was so amazing at just getting us to very thoughtfully and seriously consider our futures. And when somebody does that at such a young age and pulls out what you would want to do, not so much what your family has told you should do or what your grades, like let's say you're really good in a certain subject, some people might think, oh, then I need to go into that. Um, for me, it was just saying like what you already do naturally is a job and it's possible to help others in that way. And then she told me just take these, Psych 101, Sociology 101 classes in college and see what you think. I was hooked. I mean, but it was a reaffirmation that what the path that I was on was the right path. Now, unlike I think a lot of people who my cohorts around me who did end up doing a lot of switching majors back and forth, the minute that I took my psych class, I knew that I needed to just get through college very quickly because I still had my master's. And in my family, the expectation was that no matter what it is that you go into, you're going to go and get the highest degree possible. So I knew I still had to get my master's and my doctorate in order to be a marriage and family therapist. And the terminal degree is master's, but like I said, in my family, that wasn't going to be enough. And I'm actually really glad that I did. I had a beeline. I did my college. I got a bachelor's in psychology. I did that in 3 years. Went to get my master's, did that in 2 years. Went and got my doctorate. I did my classwork in 4 years. Then this is where things start to slow down. It took 2 years to do my coursework. And then I met my middle school sweetheart. We ended up getting married 6 months later. We eloped.
Oh.
And then 3 months after that, we decided to try to have a baby. It happened right away. So I got derailed. So it took me 7 years to get my doctorate. So don't lose hope, people. You can do it. I walked for my doctoral graduation looking like a big old blueberry with a blue robe and the big floppy hat with our second child. And that was my motivation. I said, I know I won't want to go back to school or do anything after this baby comes, a second baby. So yeah, I did a beeline, but at the same time, I'm one of those people who knew that family is so important. That's another reason why I love my profession, because it is flexible. It is something that I think honors your own schedule. Being an entrepreneur, being a business person, I have the flexibility that I want, and it's been able to survive a long time and different milestones in my life.
And do you remember what your first job or first session was as, an official relationship therapist?
I do. As under my own practice, I remember I had a really small office space within my dad's office space. He's a chiropractor and he recently retired, but his office space, I was just starting out and he was so thrilled that I could hang my own shingle and call myself a licensed marriage and family therapist. So he let me have space in his office. And I remember, again, I was super pregnant with our first child. And I thought, I don't really know what I'm doing because this is the first time that it's like all on me. Not as far as the work, but the admin. Do I walk them in this way? Do I bring the paperwork to them? It was like all those little things. And I remember, I won't say their names, but I actually have still kept in touch with them. They every once in a while will send me an update as to what's going on between the two of them, and I'll never forget them. They helped me to understand, and they did know, not at the time, but they know now that they were my first clients. They gave me the biggest compliment. They said, we would have never guessed.
Oh.
It was exciting. It was scary, but it was super exciting. And I knew it was the beginning of something amazing. And fortunately, since then, I've had like this just line
Yeah.
of clients. And so I'm really lucky.
And as a woman in this industry, has it been easy, hard?
You know, I have to be very honest. I don't ever really see myself or feel like I've seen myself or set myself apart because I was born a woman. I do, I feel like it's not been something that I have allowed to kind of penetrate my confidence or my ability to say, this is what I want to do. In the field in general, in psychology in general, it has been predominantly men who have been the authors. You know, I have my book. We'll definitely have to talk about that.
Oh, yes.
They've been the kind of the people who are at the heads, even though there are amazing studies led by women, authors, research, all sorts of things that are going on by women. If you do a Google search on like top psychologists ever, it's a bunch of older men, and they're older white men, and they look nothing like me. But I haven't ever felt like that's something that I am going up against, because the truth is, I have always known that I want to be in private practice. I don't want to worry about what other people are doing with their stuff. I don't ever think about competition, because I feel like we live in a society, especially now, where we have access to so many people and they have so much access to us and to help. So I've just never been that person who thinks about things in terms of like, where am I in this industry? I'm just going to do me. When it comes to these sorts of things, I feel like if it's going to be helpful for someone out there, nothing's going to stop me from getting it to them. Whatever I can to get this product, thought, whatever it is to them, because if it helps even one person, I know a lot of people say that and it sounds super cliche, but the truth is, what you're doing, what I do, helping to educate people, getting stories out, you never know whose life is going to be changed by that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's totally worth it, even if it's only for two people in the audience, or if it's 2,000. It's totally worth it.
Oh, absolutely. I feel like I used him as an example too during my last interview, but Guy Torrey, he said something along the lines of, don't cheat your audience, don't cheat the people that show up for the people that did not. And that stuck with me. I got so many comments regarding that, because sometimes, yeah, especially you mentioned nowadays, you're in tune with who's there, who's showing up, who's watching, but don't cheat the people that that are there supporting.
And I remember hearing that, because I've obviously I listened to your podcast, and I remember thinking, so many people out there are trying to get that message in and of itself across, and you'll hear it 20 different ways, but the way that he says it resonated with you. The way that somebody else resonated, it might resonate with somebody else. So that's the thing. It's, don't stop trying to get your point across and trying to get your message across because you have 4 likes.
Yeah.
You never know when you're going to get 4 million. You never know when somebody's going to be ready for you and your message.
I love that. That's like my quote of the day. So let's talk back a little bit about how we met. So we met in Houston. I was a reporter producer for, I guess it was a lifestyle show. And I remember my executive producer at the time, love him, Don Graham. Shout out to you.
Hey, Don.
Hey, Don. He was in love with your work. He was just like, how can we get her? We would always move to the side and we would be like, how can we get Dr. Viviana Coles to have a segment a day? Like, how in the world? Like, let's make this happen.
So sweet. And I remember, because y'all would reach out via email and they'd say, okay, this is what we're thinking. Can we add like 10 more ideas for you? I'm like, yes, I can totally do that for you. Oh, you want me to come every day next week? I am there. And what's so funny is my clients were always so generous with their time, and they'd be like, oh my gosh, you have to go do that. Yes, we'll move to this day instead, and we'll come in earlier. We'll do this. they're so accommodating because they love to see me on TV. They would love to see me, especially in their hometown, and it was really great. So yeah, doing y'all's local show was just so, I can't tell you what it did for my confidence, what it did for my ability to get my point across as succinctly as possible, and having fun. Y'all were so much fun.
Every day. But the point of that too is that I remember watching you on set, and I was just like, she's gonna do great things. I mean, she is, and I remember thinking she's gonna have her own show or someone's gonna steal her from us. I was like, maybe she's gonna move away from Houston. I was like, no, maybe, not yet. But again, I remember thinking just how comfortable you were with the subjects that were thrown in front of you. Was it extremely easy, especially when you're, kind of keeping up with the trends? Has it become easier for you to talk about certain things? Do you feel like people are more open to it?
Yeah, so I think when I've been asked, whether it's in an interview or by clients, how did I get so comfortable talking about sex? Let me tell you, it wasn't necessarily anything that came naturally to me, but I had to do a lot of education and training to become a certified sex therapist. So that, having the knowledge, having like the background information, knowing what's appropriate, what's inappropriate, how to talk to certain clients about things. Now I feel like I've gotten to a place, and this is the feedback that I get very often, which is, how to talk to so many people about something that most people don't want to talk about. And that's the sort of feedback that makes me think, okay, I'm onto something. So while I don't like live or survive off of feedback, but getting the positive feedback, getting the people who say, oh my gosh, I heard you say this one sentence on what will soon be Stephanie's podcast episode. And, I just, that my husband and I both listened to it and looked at each other and said, oh my gosh, we want to work with her. That's the sort of thing that makes me think, okay, I need to just continue doing what I'm doing. I don't need to do anything crazy or wild, or I just need to be me. So having the experience that I had filming really helped me to just kind of allow the cameras to go away, which is absolutely something that was preparing me for what I didn't realize at the time would be being on national television, Married at First Sight. That I can't tell you how amazing it was for me to be able to just jump on set from one night to the next and feel at ease, or at least at ease enough to make sure that I was able to kind of honor myself and honor my voice and not feel like I needed to put anything on, because I'm not a good actress.
So was that your first time doing live TV and segments?
It sure was.
Stop.
You couldn't tell? Yes.
I could not tell. I can tell, and I usually have to give first timers a pep talk, especially for live TV, not podcasts. That's usually way different, but live TV, especially when I'm producing, and they're the ones that, either I'm interviewing or perhaps someone else is interviewing, and I have to, produce the segment. I usually have to give them a pep talk and kind of tell them what to do and calm their nerves. I might even sing to them. I don't know.
Darn it, you didn't get, I should have been more nervous so you would have sung to me.
I'd be like, ah. I could not tell.
I mean, that is awesome, because, it was just one of those things where I felt like this is such an amazing opportunity. And the people, I mentor a lot of people. I'm very fortunate that people reach out and say like, hey, I want to know how you got to where you are and how you do what you do. And I'm like, let me tell you, because I wish I had had someone like, who was in my position mentoring me. So I'm an open book when it comes to that. And the first thing that I tell them, and they will tell you this, is you should always say yes. Even when you want to say no to an opportunity, even if you're scared, do it scared.
Yeah.
Because guess what? If I had not said yes, maybe the first time to y'all, okay, maybe you would have called me back. But if I didn't say yes after the second or third, guess what? You're not calling me back. You're moving on. So I'm always telling people, say yes. I've heard people say, do it scared. Absolutely. Do it scared. And yes, fake it till you make it.
Back to what you just said about just say yes because people might not call you back or whatnot. Um, Something to keep in mind as well is perhaps they do want to wait for you, but they can't, right? Like for me, if I'm putting together a segment, it's not that like I might really want this person. And again, this is for live TV. Um, but you might really, really want this person, but you have to do that. For example, I'm going to say yoga segment. You need to fill that spot, so it's not because you don't want to wait for that person or you don't respect their schedule, but it's because you have to fill that spot. And that is so true what you said. It's like a missed opportunity and you don't want to think what if.
To this day, my front desk knows to forward, text, call if there are any opportunities that come through, because I do respect time. I do know that they might say, hey, I know it's 2:00, but we're airing a segment at 5. Are you available? If I am available, if I'm like physically and if it's possible, I'm going to say yes to this day. I know that they have something that they need to do. If I can help, why not?
And for any first timers, I mean, no matter what it is that they're doing, let's say that they have that one opportunity right now to do something out of their comfort zone, whether it's TV, radio, podcast, whatever. What advice can you give them? And what did you do? Or was there like a mantra? Did you do some sort of something to kind of get you ready for your first time doing a live interview?
Because the work that we were doing and the work that I continue to do is so visual, I made sure, like, I would like to have a good setup. I wanted to know, okay, what colors should I use? What colors should I not use? I would ask a lot of questions, because what you don't want to have happen is you don't feel comfortable in your own skin when you're talking about something that is second nature. Because imagine, like, when I was going on, and even still when I do live segments, they're asking me about something that I know inside and out usually. But if for whatever reason the camera's off, the sound is off, maybe I'm wearing a print. Now I would know not to do certain prints, but I would wear a print where they're like, I'm sorry, but that's not working. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, I have to like frantically look for something else. That can throw you off. So just make sure that you are well prepared with the audio and visual stuff, so that all you have to do is just be you and shine and share your expertise.
Even if the slightest thing feels not like you, or you're a little uncomfortable or whatever it is, it could throw you off. So I do think that's some of the best advice for someone that's doing something different, especially when it involves cameras. I mean, that can be nerve-wracking.
And it's not always perfect. I mean, I can absolutely share with you. There was a time recently, it was Decision Day Houston, which is season 13, which aired, and now we're doing 14, and people totally could tell. I wore this dress that I loved. I bought it online. I put it on. I was like, oh, this looks so good. I feel good. It's fun. And I sat down in it for the first time on set. And when I sat down, I was like, oh, this slit is a lot higher. And that is not what I'm trying to do.
Oh no.
I had to literally like shift the slit over, put my hand. And so people were noticing. They're like, gosh, she looks really uncomfortable in her dress. I say people, it's like 3 people online, but they would at me or whatever. And I'm like, that's because I was, but I didn't tell people that. And I just, the show must go on. But yeah, practice sitting for all of you. I don't care what you're wearing. Practice sitting in your clothes. And don't ever assume that your legs are not going to show.
They probably will.
They probably will.
And we'll be right back with some rapid fire questions.
Okay, so rapid fire, a little session.
Ooh, okay. I'm in. I'm excited. It's like back on live TV.
Yeah, let's do this.
I'm going to try to step it up.
First question. First celebrity crush.
Oh, my husband's going to kill me because I've had a crush on my husband just about as long as, because we met in middle school, just about as long as I've had a crush with this guy. So even though my husband wins hands down all the time, Jared Leto. I'm so sorry.
no.
I'm so sorry, honey. He knows. He knows.
That's a good one.
I'm dying.
I mean,
I'm dying. I'm so red right now.
Jared Leto, look what you did. You just made her turn red. You made Dr. Viviana Coles turn red. I've known her for like 6 years now. I've never seen her blush.
Oh my gosh. Everyone who knows me is going to be like, I can't believe you said that. Okay, this isn't starting off well, Stephanie. I am scared now. Oh my god. I'm the same color as my top.
I can tell you mine even though I'm not married, so I'm not going to get in trouble. But Leonardo DiCaprio, absolutely.
Oh yes. What era?
Okay, so I remember Titanic, obviously, but I remember the growing pains. Leonardo DiCaprio, I remember him in Growing Pains.
Okay, but what about Romeo and Juliet?
Oh, I mean, I was a little older then, so yeah, absolutely. Okay, next question. Worst date.
Oh, yes. I will not say his name. I will tell you. Yeah, there was a guy. We went out to eat, and this was teenage time. We went out to eat, and then afterwards we went out to his car because we were going to go to a movie, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to do some whippets with me?" And I was like, "What's a whippet?" And he's like, "It's when you like inhale the like what is it, carbon dioxide? I don't even know, like from a whipped cream can." And I was like, "What?" First of all, no. Second of all, no. And take me home, please. And you're not driving me. I'm driving to my house. This is crazy. Yeah, that was weird. Worst date.
I've never heard of this.
Good. Good.
Wow, I think that's hands down the worst date I've heard of. Whippets. Next question. Something about yourself that would surprise us. Maybe like a hidden talent.
Oh, well, I mean, I I put this on my social, but not everybody is on my social. I can do this weird thing with my tongue. You want to see it?
Yes.
I guess we'll have to describe it for the podcasters. Okay, here we go.
It looks like a clover almost. And I cannot do it.
This is really going off the rails. I went to Ripley's, believe it or not, in San Antonio. I'm sure you're familiar. And they have like this wall that has this picture. And I was like, "Kids, I can do that." And they're like, "What?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I did it. And they were just like, "You're so weird.
You're embarrassing as mom."
I'm like, people are looking at a lot of other oddities. But yeah.
Speaking of that kind of goes with my next question. Travel, itinerary, or spontaneous?
Oh my gosh. Well, I kind of have to have an itinerary at this. I'm currently on a trip. I have 2 more trips in the next week.
Okay.
And spontaneous. Oh, yeah. No, I'm going with itinerary.
What about if it's vacation?
Even if it's vacation, the way that I grew up traveling definitely informs the way that I am now. My husband was the opposite. His family would just go somewhere and then explore and figure out what they were going to do. My family was like 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. planned. It's like the Griswolds. We're like, we're going to do this, this, and this, because we always wanted to like squeeze every bit of every vacation. But that's not like a real vacation. That's a trip. I can do the like spontaneous stuff. But I would say if I had to pick one, itinerary.
Favorite comfort food?
Oh my gosh. Is this embarrassing? Whatever. You know what? You're a friend. I'm just going to tell you. It's just you, right? It's just nobody else is going to hear this. Wink, wink. So I have this weird thing. And my husband's going to be like, "What are you doing?" I have this weird thing. It is a recipe that has been handed down from my mom's side of the family, who's Mexican. We call it Laredo Soup.
Okay.
It is chili cheese or barbecue Fritos, but you eat it in a soup that is made of water, lemon, and salt. And you can add hot sauce to it if you want to. So you're basically eating like a Frito soup. You know what? You're being so sweet because you're not making faces.
No, because you know why? Because it kind of sounds like you said water, lemon, and salt. And do you dip the the Frito?
No, I just kind of throw them in there, and then you try
And
to
do you
eat them before they
spoon?
get too soggy. You eat them with a spoon.
It's like a Frito pie.
I would draw the line at
Oh,
adding
yeah,
meat.
no. I would have made a face. No.
That would be worse.
I guess because you said lemon salt, you might add like hot sauce, you said. It kind of sounds like, I don't know, when you get like the fruit cup and you add like lemon salt, like tahini. So it's I think the water is what maybe throws me off.
That's what throws everybody off. They're like, why are you like soaking it? I'm like, look. So that is my comfort food. There is a little bit of shame around it, but I do this in the comfort of my own home. Okay.
It's your comfort food. I wouldn't mind trying it.
I will send you the particulars. Okay.
Okay, last question. A TV show that you're binge watching.
I'm laughing because I'm watching We Crashed. And who's in We Crashed? Jared Leto.
Oh, gee, I wonder why.
You said my first crush. He was my first crush, but he's not my last crush, okay? My husband's my last crush.
Sure. I'm not winking right now. And now, let's talk Married at First Sight. I mean, I still remember where I was when I found out that you were going to be on the show. And I remember yelling, and people around me were like, I was like on my phone reading. I'm like, oh, no, I'm good. My friend's going to be on TV. So, huge. And I would say you are the perfect fit. You truly are. You bring just so much to the show and to the people, to the couples. So how did that happen? How did that come about? Kind of what was like the behind the scenes work that perhaps we didn't get to see?
When producers were looking for people, they would look and they're like, oh, she already has some on camera experience. It's not necessary, it's not a requirement. And they'll all tell you that. So I was back in 2015, really starting to I got like 3 different production companies who were coming to me and saying, hey, we've seen your stuff. We want to see what it would be like to have you help us pitch for a show. Nothing to do with the current production company that I'm working with. But what they ended up doing is I was getting experience on how to pitch shows and how to do what we call sizzle reels and doing all that, and how to know how to set up my cameras and how to answer questions and all of that through virtual. This was way before anything had to do with the pandemic. So it was all kind of new. And that gave me the confidence after 2 or 3 years of working with these companies, nothing would kind of come of it. I'd get my hopes up that maybe they sold a show and they wouldn't. And then finally I said, you know what? They're seeing something in me that I can probably turn into something if I was to just try. Instead of just sitting back and waiting for something to happen to me, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to contact a production company that has like quality programming that has to do with, relationships and dating and love. And let me just make the introduction and kind of introduce myself and see what happens. Sure enough, I am big into LinkedIn. All of you who are looking for jobs out there, LinkedIn is the place to be. I went to LinkedIn, I found Kinetic Content, and then I looked at their casting. And I reached out to both the casting director and the casting assistant via LinkedIn and said, hey, this is who I am. Here's my resume. I made my own reel. It was like 2.5 minutes, totally homemade. And I've gotten better at them now. And I just shot my shot. And the next day they contacted me and they said, we looked over all your stuff. We absolutely want to talk with you next week. And then this is back in 2017 at this point, maybe late 2016. And it wasn't until, so we just went back and forth about different things similar, to how it was with the other production companies. And it wasn't until 2019, the end of 2019, that they said, hey, I know we haven't spoken in a little while, but have you signed on with anybody? They're like, are you available? I said, yeah, I'm available. They said, okay, stand by. We may have something for you.
Okay.
And I was like, oh my gosh. And they can't tell me anything, right? Literally, like within the next 2 months, there's an opening that happens on the show. And I remember it was like October and they're like, hey, I remember they called me, it was like 10:30 at night, my time. And the kids were in the bed with us. We were watching TV, like it was a weekend. And they're like, hey, we want you. We're going to send over a contract. And I was like, what? And the kids are like, what's going on? And my husband's like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, they want me for the show. And it was just life changing, so crazy. But it took 5 years of somebody believing in me and then me finally believing in myself and then advocating for myself and shooting my shot for it to actually happen. So it wasn't overnight, but I can't say it was something that I grew up wanting, but I was always fine with being on stage. I didn't realize that it could be something so life-changing to actually say, I'm going to go for this and see what happens.
That is so important to me, to get to that point where you're not just going to sit there and wait around, right? If you want something, it's okay. It's okay to ask some questions, knock on some doors. It's okay. What's the worst that can happen? I truly believe that. And that's what you did. And the fact that you went and you decided to send some emails versus just kind of, you could have just sat around like, okay, well, someone's going to call me. I have all of this experience. So no, it's so important to put in the work. You'll get some answers. Even if it's no, it's an answer.
For me, I don't like to fish in the same pond over and over and over again because you never know what's really going to resonate with other people. But I also don't know what's really going to resonate with me. I'm one of those people who's like, I'm just going to ask. Worst case scenario, they tell me, no, you're crazy for asking.
Right?
Okay, thanks for your time. But best case scenario, I find something that I love, that works really well for me, that I learn something different from. And I mean, it's awesome.
I remember when I got my first internship, I really wanted to do an internship at a news station. And I just looked up news anchors, like the 6 p.m., 10 p.m. news anchors, right? And I was, I don't know, 18. And I emailed them. Now that I look back and I know who these people are, I'm like, what was I thinking? Why am I emailing the anchors? And I kid you not, most of them responded and said, I was just asking, hey, do y'all have an internship available? Most of them were very kind and said, oh, you should reach out to HR. This is her or his email, which was now, again, now that I look back, I'm like, Stephanie, come on. But it did lead me to my first internship.
That's true. Like, look, again, though, I think truly, usually the worst case scenario is that you just won't get a response. I mean, fortunately, right? But yeah, shoot your shot, people. When I got in contact with Kinetic Content, I had no clue what it would be for. I just knew that they had shows on and continue to have shows on that are really compelling and that people really love. But fortunately, I was able to be a part of the Married at First Sight franchise.
Yes.
Because now this is like the real deal. Diving into the deep end of reality relationship shows.
I mean, and that's something about Married at First Sight that I feel the name itself, and when people hear it, they freak out, right? Married at First Sight, what? When you think about it, it's an arranged marriage. It's been around for forever. So, what do you think it is about the name and I guess the reality of the situation of the show that freaks people out?
I think what freaks people out is the idea that you're losing control. You know, we are very much a society that wants to control our futures and our outcomes. So when these strangers and these hopeful singles are putting themselves out there in such a way where they literally don't have control, I mean, I commend them, right? I mean, it takes a lot of bravery to do this. And it takes a lot of faith in us to match them correctly. And fortunately, it works, you know, like I think that maybe 29% of the time. That's pretty good.
It is.
For the amount of time that we spend, you know, vetting these people and getting to know them and their families and their backgrounds and all that, 29%, 25%, whatever it is these days, that's pretty good.
Would you say that I guess 70% pretty much that doesn't work? Do you think that in a weird way, they already had made up their mind on the day that they met their person, like during the wedding?
Yeah, I don't know that it would be 70% that I could say that, but a solid 30 or 40% of the 70. I mean, we're going to get in the weeds with these percentages, but I would say probably a third of the people that come into this and don't end up with their spouse, it wasn't going to happen from day one. And of course, we really try to get them to get out of their own way, to give them a shot, to really figure out like what's important in a marriage and what's going to sustain you, because who you see on day one of your marriage versus who you see on 10,001 days of your marriage, those are already different people. So I think you're right. I think there are definitely people who have come into this and it's like day one, boom. But then there are a lot of people who you get to see the process of them falling in and out of love with someone, or falling into like with someone, or really growing in their own definition of what a spouse is, and then hopefully that's compatible with their new spouse's definition of what it is. And that's the thing, we never know who's going to fall into what category, and we're just always so hopeful that it will be 100%. Every couple is just like hitting it out of the ballpark, but reality sets in and we realize, okay, they're going to struggle.
What advice do you give to people, especially nowadays that everything is so visual because of social media?
Yeah, I mean, what I would say is, if you're looking to find someone, get to know them enough, and marry somebody within the next year or two, you cannot be so picky that that you don't overlook anything. You do have to bend, and you have to be flexible, and you have to consider that some things you just have to accept. I can tell you, my husband and I are going to be celebrating 15 years of marriage this summer.
Aw, congrats.
And there are a lot of things that he just had to accept about my personality and vice versa. And on paper, especially now having been like playing matchmaker, right, to people on TV and doing all that, on paper, I don't know that we would have been matched. And I feel like with the other experts, because we've had these conversations, I don't know that they would have been matched with their partners either. That's the thing. It's something that you really have to want. You have to want to like somebody to like them. You have to want to respect somebody in order to respect them. And so if you're out there and you're dating and you're just looking for somebody who checks off certain boxes, get some feedback about those boxes. Get some feedback from married people about whether or not those things really matter, 6 months down the road, 6 years down the road. Because if not, you might think, well, I don't need to settle and I don't need to. Well, I think living with somebody, there's acceptance and settling are similar, and they look similar. But settling always sounds like you're sacrificing something to, like it's just too much. I think you need to be open to, if you really want this to happen, just like when you're looking for a job, there are certain concessions that you have to make. Maybe the commute's a little too long. Maybe the pay's a little low. Maybe their uniform, you don't like it. You make certain concessions. And I think a lot of people, it's like we want them to not settle. But I think what I would say as a relationship therapist is like, it's okay to settle into a marriage, even if it didn't look the way that you would have thought marriage looks like. That's okay.
Do you have a favorite season that you've filmed?
Man, that's a tough one. So I started season 9 with Charlotte. I keep going back to that one as being my favorite because, I mean, obviously for me, the whole process was like such a mystery, because I watched the show. I didn't watch it religiously, but I watched the show. I knew what it was like. And I remember every once in a while kind of being like, oh, I would have asked this question. But having done some TV, live TV, fortunately, they don't get to cut a lot.
Oh, right. They can't add the pretty song or the cuts. Yeah.
But I did know that there's still editing, right? There's still editing involved. And so I was aware that, okay, I'm not going to be too hard on the experts because I know that there's editing. But I would say Charlotte, because it was very new. It was very mysterious. And then being on and then realizing, oh no, this is how it is. The experts actually match them. And there are times where the spouses don't really get along and they just put it all out there. I loved seeing the process from within because it's really not all that different from what you see on TV. I mean, it's definitely longer. And I still keep in touch with all of them. They're all wonderful. They have so many great things going on in their individual lives and their relationships and their marriages that are still going. Kids, it's just great. So I would say because they were my first,
like your first baby.
it's like, yeah, there's just an affinity there. Not that there isn't an affinity to the rest of the seasons. I really have kept in touch with them and enjoy and respect and care about them. But that was definitely, I think it's my favorite.
And what is something that people would be surprised to learn about when it comes to the show or shooting or filming?
I think that it's not scripted like at all. They have never once told me what to say, what to do, what to ask. They're very much, when it comes to asking me as an expert, they just let me do my thing. So they will absolutely tell me like, hey, this couple seems to be struggling with this. Because again, we get like 3 hours with each of them, but this isn't therapy. So they'll let me know like, oh, this couple recently is going through this, but you might, just ask them whatever you want. So they just let us go. They just let me do my thing. They let me ask questions the way that I'd like. It's not scripted, and I'm glad because I have a bad memory, so I would never be able to remember.
Same. Yeah.
What's line?
I like that though, because that means that you can be genuine. You can be yourself. You can say what you would actually say if you weren't on camera.
I'm glad to hear that. I think maybe something else that's surprising is that I'm trying to think. I want to address some of the things that people have asked me recently. Surprising would be that everybody tends to get along. I mean, like, I know the three of us experts, we get along amazingly. We care about each other. They have taken me in since hour one. I remember being so nervous to meet them.
You're the new kid.
I was the new kid on the block, but like with live TV, you're in and out. You get to meet people like you. You can tell you're seeing them off screen and on screen, right? And I'm seeing you like walk off set and you're like, oh, let's talk about this. With them, all I knew was that they were on a hit national TV show. And I thought, gosh, what if they are fake? Or what if they're like TV personalities and they like just sit on their own? Fortunately, they're not like that at all. They're like super down to earth, just amazing. And they kind of folded me in and I felt so welcome and taken care of. So I wish that it would be like that for every set.
It's the three of you taking on the world, literally. One couple at a time.
It feels like that. It's the three of us against the MAFS fan world out there, the nation.
And the fans love y'all, clearly. I mean, you've been trending on Netflix for the past few weeks. I think a few days ago, I think you guys reached number 3, was it?
Yeah, season 10 was released. Season 9 was on, and that was amazing. And I think a lot of people finally figured out like, oh my gosh, this is a show that's on Lifetime and we can watch it. So they really caught on that way. And now season 10, it feels like a new wave of fans are coming on and they're all very much invested with season 10 on Netflix. I think that's amazing. What's funny is that like all of the seasons have been on other streamers, but I think a lot of people just discovered it on Netflix. So yeah, it's really exciting to see the fandom. It's excited to see that people are so interested in reality TV shows that have to do with relationships. That shows me that like people are interested. They're learning something. Sometimes they love to hate us. Sometimes they love to hate the participants, but they're watching.
Right. What do you think it is about reality TV shows involving love that really gets the audience going?
Because we've all been there. We've all been on some part of the journey. And I think that what's interesting about Married at First Sight is that it covers so much ground of a relationship. Like it goes through the first impressions to meeting the families, to living together, to getting married, not in that order, to having like really difficult conversations, to having arguments and fights, to learning boundaries, and then sometimes the disillusion of the marriage, and then other times deciding we're going all the way, we're going to get pregnant, we're going to buy a house together. You see so much in one season that takes years for other couples to get through. And I think that that's really something that resonates.
I love the awkwardness, especially after they meet for the first time. To me, that's like so, because it's so real, right?
Wedding night.
Like there have been a lot of couples where I put myself in their shoes, and I'm like, I would be doing the same thing, kind of, just so yeah.
So how about the champagne?
Yeah, I love the champagne.
The weather's nice.
This question kind of goes with the show and love and just the times, but have you seen a change in love, and perhaps how people view love?
Yeah. Hashtag couples goals. Yeah. I think it's two sides of the same coin. I think you have people who are putting out on social media, it's a struggle. It's a struggle to be with someone day in and day out. But you have so many people who are promoting kind of the more positive aspects of the relationship. It's like vacations and perfectly coiffed, and like their beds are made, and their house just looks impeccable. I would say for all of the people who are looking to social media on a regular basis to learn about relationships, just don't. That is not where you're going to learn about real stuff. Seek out a therapist. Seek out somebody who knows what's going on behind the scenes, who knows what's going on in the neighbor's house, because they're probably seeing me. Like, do that, because I don't think you're ever going to get an accurate depiction of the spectrum of what a relationship goes through on social media. It's so annoying that we're now living, unfortunately, I'm not in this dating part of my life, but it is so annoying that people are immediately thinking, what if there's someone better? What if there's someone better? It's FOMO all the time. Men and women, everyone in between, like everyone's thinking, but what if the next person's easier to look at? What if the next person's easier to talk to? What if the next one is better in bed? What if the next one? Guys, you've heard it everywhere. The grass is not greener on the other side. The grass is greener where you water it. And that is, can we please segue? I'm like chomping at the bit. I have to talk about my book.
Let's do it.
This is exactly what the 4 intimacy styles is about. It's about having that long lasting physical connection with someone. Fortunately, we have a lot of resources out there to help you with your emotional connection. Intimacy is both emotional and physical. But what people are breaking up over more often than not is the loss of physical connection. So I put this book out because I want people to know that it's possible to have that for long term. So many people want to get married. I mean, you were just talking to your single friends. I'm sure that if you were to ask them if they could find the right person and be married tomorrow, they would probably say yes. Now, there are a lot of really happy, successful singles who want to stay single, but we still live in a society and in a world where most people want to couple up, whether it's through legal marriage or not. But keeping it, it's like with Seinfeld, you can take the reservation, but can you hold the reservation? Yeah. A lot of people can take the reservation, they cannot hold it. And what I'm trying to do with the 4 intimacy styles is help people have hope and guidance to be able to hold that reservation and hold on to their relationships for the long term. Because I have counseled so many people who fall in love, get the house, get the marriage, get the kids, get all of that. And they find themselves 2 years down the road, 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 20 years down the road. And they're like, we don't live like a married couple. We don't even live like roommates. We're just like in this contract together, and we're not miserable, but we know we should be happier, and we know that this is not what we signed up for. And it is so heartbreaking because I want to see people happy. I want to see people in healthy relationships. I'm going to be your biggest champion. If your relationship is healthy, I will be your biggest cheerleader. If your relationship is unhealthy, I'm going to help you with that. but sometimes it is time to say goodbye. And so what most of them are finding is that if they could just hold on to the physical connection, the emotional connection will continue to stay stoked. But a lot of them don't know how to do that. So the 4 intimacy styles and learning how to round out your intimacy style, which will then help you to be able to address both you and your partner's sexual, sensual, physical needs, that's going to keep the intimacy alive for the long run.
Yeah, and that's something I was reading about your book, which I will get.
Oh, I'm going to totally
It's
send
so
you a copy. I
oh
just didn't
my
have time to.
oh, I would love that.
I'll send you an extra one so you can give it away to your podcast listeners.
Oh, that would be cool. Thank you so much. And it was so interesting too, because I mean, it's bonding, release, giving, responsive. And I've never heard of any. I'll be dead honest. I mean, I have not heard about this.
And that's a lot of, I mean, I'm fortunate. I'm getting a lot of book reviews. I really try to connect with my readers. That's one of the reasons that I decided to professionally self-publish, because I wanted to know every single person that had this book in their hands. And I wanted to talk with them, and I wanted to create a community. And fortunately, it's happening. But a lot of the reviews are saying, I didn't even know what was missing and where things were disconnected until I was like in chapter 1 or 2 of your book. And then I realized, oh my gosh, that's me. Oh my gosh, that's my partner. Or, oh, that's what happened in my last relationship, and that's why we broke up. And a lot of people are hungry for information about how to keep what they have. There's a lot of people are willing to shoot their shot often for 10 years at a time and all that. But this is mainly for the people who are like, look, when I have something, how can I keep it? Because I don't want to break up our family. I don't want to move out of my house. I don't want to, feel like I can't have sex with my partner and have it be satisfying, or I can't talk to them about it. A lot of it is just about keeping what you have.
So, something else that I really loved, and for the listeners, viewers, they can take a quiz by going to your website. And then just from the quiz, they can learn a little bit more about themselves. And then they can start reading the book.
All you have to do is go to the number 4, intimacystyles.com. There's a quick quiz there. It's going to give you percentages of each: bonding, release, giving, responsive. And the closer to 25% of each that you are, the more rounded out you are. So imagine like a circle, and it's got the pie chart, right? And it's 25 of each. The closer you are to that, the closer you are to being rounded out, and then being confident that you know how to sexually satisfy your partner and their needs with physical intimacy. Now, don't lose hope if you are nowhere near 25% in each one. If you're really heavy on one versus the other, you can read more through the results about what you can do to help get you more rounded out. Of course, the book has a lot more information, but I do a ton of articles and blogs and videos about them. So you can get a lot of free information out there. But truly, the quickest, easiest way to do it is to go online, order the book. It's the4intimacystyles.com. You can find it there. A lot of people will say that it is a very, they've said that it's somewhat of an easy read, meaning it's not going to be like a bunch of jargon that makes you have to Google it. It's like you're talking to me, because that's what I want. I'm a therapist. I'm all about talking. I'm not a writer. I think I did a good job. It's me basically talking to clients, and people love that and easily, relay the ideas that are in the book to their partners. But get the book online. I sign and dedicate each and every one. Get 2 for you and your partner, get 1 for a friend. But I just want to get the word out, because I really want to help preserve relationships. And I know that maintaining physical intimacy is the key to do that.
So interesting. Yeah.
It is. It's super interesting. Thank you.
Well, I can't wait to read it.
Thank you so much.
You've been doing so much, thing after thing. And what advice would you give to someone that is trying to be a relationship therapist just like you one day?
Oh, gosh. I would say make sure that when you're seeking to help other people, that you're not actually just trying to heal yourself. I know that there are a lot of therapists. There's something in the field we say, therapist, heal thyself. And it's true. A lot of people go into helping professions because they didn't get that help for themselves. So make sure that before you really dive into being a therapist, that you've worked on your own stuff. Not to say that everything could possibly be worked through before you help others, or that it has to be worked through before you help others, but you're going to be a much more efficient and helpful therapist if you've worked through at least the things that you can identify before getting into this.
Last thing, best advice that you've received.
I still work with an executive business coach. She's amazing. And like 2 or 3 times a year, I reach out to her and I'm like, can you get me on the calendar for like an hour and a half as soon as possible? I have way too many things that I'm trying to juggle. Again, I told you, I love to have lots of irons in the fire, but that's a lot of juggling. I wouldn't have it any other way, but I can make it happen because I have a lot of support in my life, including getting a business coach. One of the things that Juliana told me very early on is find someone who has the career that you want and talk to them or figure out what their path was. I can tell you it was not until just the past few months that I finally found somebody like that. And I won't say who it is yet, because I have a feeling that there will be some information out there that you'll be like, that's who she was talking about. But I finally found that person, and it took me forever. I wish that I had found my mentor, my role model so much sooner. So if you are that person who's trying to figure out what to do with your life, do what Juliana says and get a mentor. Look for a role model, whether it's someone that you think you can actually work with one-on-one or not. There's a lot you can glean from their career. And that would have made a huge difference. But you know what? I wouldn't change anything.
That was so good. Wait, any upcoming projects or anything that you can talk about?
Any upcoming projects that I can talk about? No, but I do have, I know, I'm sorry. I can't give you any scoops, but I can tell you that a lot of the irons that I have in the fire are going to finally get pulled out so we can actually see them. Different things that I've been wanting to do for a long time, different ways of working with me, different modalities of working with me. Yeah. And fortunately, a lot of in-person stuff is finally coming to fruition. I am on my book tour right now. If everyone just follows me online, whether it's Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, I'm on all of them. And it's just spell out Dr. Viviana, and they'll be able to keep up with everything. Obviously, I want you to get the book, but even if you don't, check out my newsletter, free newsletter, sign up for that on drviviana.com.
And everyone listening, Dr. Viviana Coles is as amazing and sweet and knowledgeable and passionate and loving, as I'm sure you know now from the podcast and from watching her on Married at First Sight. So yeah, definitely keep up with her. I'll be rooting you on. And Jared Leto, what's up?
For you. For
me, sure.
I'm done.
This was so much fun. Thank you so much.
It's so great to go down memory lane with you and to see what you're doing. And I'm so excited about your podcast.